Today in the garage we have our new and improved Ford F250 2020. We bought the truck 6 days ago and now it has 500 miles on it, and we have transformed it from the once stock truck to the now improved truck.
So big.
And I want to give a huge shout out to my buddy Derek and his friend Twitch for facilitating all the build and helping make everything happen. It was awesome to use their shop and being able to have Derek do all the fab work. And Twitch also helped with some of the weld work and made this whole thing happen in 4 days. So from stock to completely modified in 4 days. We had ordered all the parts ahead of time, so it was just kind of a mad dash at putting everything together, making it all work and getting it all fit, and it came out pretty well. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a tour of all the things that we did to the truck in 4 days. So let's get started.
Hey, don't drop 150 mile stuff. Ow! What are you doing?
Here's the Ford truck stock before we rip it apart. Before we even start. No more front bumper, look at that. In the front of the truck, we have a worn bumper. It has a Smittybilt 12,000 pound winch. This is their waterproof version of it. Probably the ideal size would be a 16,000 pound. However, due to the weight increase with the 16,000 pound winch and the cost increase, just didn't figure it was worth it. We're gonna use a snatch block if we need additional load capacity for tow or for pulling with it. Then we have a 40-inch LED light bar that was done, I think it's from Rough Country. It's a China-made light bar, but they warranty it for 3 years, so figured it'd be worth a shot. And it's very, very cheap in comparison to a rigid light bar. It also has, it's kind of a cool background of black, which is kind of nice. Then also has a cover for it, so it kind of blends in with that. The winch, we added a thimble for it, so a little bit safer than the hook. And we will be adding some lights for probably fog lights, amber fog lights for there. So that's the front. Let me pop the hood here real quick. All right, so under the hood, we have two ARB compressors, and Derek fabricated two steel mounts for them that use pre-existing bolt holes. This one was already here in the fender, but he just went ahead and tapped it so we could thread a bolt into there. And we use two of the ARB air compressors. The reason for this, instead of using the dual compressor setup, is because we can air up both sides at the same time. So we'll run one air hose to the driver's side, one air hose to the passenger side, and it should be faster than running a dual compressor setup. It also gives us a little redundancy. If one was to fail, then we have a backup air compressor. This air compressor here also runs the front air locker, and that's an aux front air locker. We'll take a look at that down below. But you can see it kind of fit in pretty good in this spare spots here in under hood area. This is where you connect the air hoses to each one of these, and then this is the airline actuating valve here. So pretty cool fitment here. Let's take a look at the axle underneath. All right, so underneath we have the aux locker. So this is a locker that typically people see cable actuated. You can also use a electronic solenoid to actuate it, or air. And so we're using air and have the internal solenoid with the air line running to it. The nice thing with the aux locker is, unlike the ARB selectable locker or the other e-locker style lockers, this one is more of a mechanical type locker. And if you had an airline fail, you can actually screw in what they call a driveway lock, which allows you to lock in the front differential just by unscrewing this, putting their little driveway lock in there, and it engages the locker. So no matter what, you can run it locked or unlocked really easily. It's also pretty simple componentry inside of here. So there's just a fork basically inside that engages and disengages to lock in the front differential. So that was really, really nice. It'll be interesting to try it because I've primarily used ARB lockers in the past, and with just the complexity that they have and the potential for leaking and the difficulty of fixing those things, figured this would be worth its shot. It also has a nice diff cover that comes with it that's super sturdy, which also features a drain plug, so it makes it a little easier for changing the diff fluid inside of here. On the underside, the other changes we made was the track bar. So this is a Carli Suspension track bar, and then we added the sway bar end links from Carli. And then let's take a look at the side here. So the rest of the suspension is the 3.5-inch lift coil. Now this coil is for diesel trucks, and so with that in mind, on this truck, being that it's a gas and it's a little lighter, it actually lifts the truck about 4 inches of lift height. And then the shocks are a 2.5-inch body Fox dual adjustable shock. You can adjust the damping for slow speed and high speed compression with the little turn valves underneath here. And these were done through AccuTune, and the neat thing with AccuTune is they tune the shocks specifically for the vehicle, so you can tell them what you're going to use it for, what the weights are going to be, and they take the Fox shock as it would come to you normally, and they take it apart, retune it, and send it to you, which is really slick. So far it seems to be a pretty good valving, but we're gonna have to do some more testing on it, especially when it's loaded, and just see how it works. So the rest of it, we still have the stock brake lines, but we're going to be replacing the brake lines with some longer ones, stainless steel, when we get a chance. And that's about it for the suspension. For the wheels and tires, these are the new Yokohama Geolander XAT tire, and they are a hybrid tire between kind of on-road and off-road. So it's a little bit more aggressive than most all-terrain tires, but then also a little bit better street manners than what a mud train would have. The nice thing with this tire is that it is a 3-ply sidewall. It's a load range D, but it still has over 3,500 pound capacity to it, which is pretty good. And I would say the biggest competition to this tire is the Nitto Ridge Grappler tire or the Toyo RT tire. And both of those have been out for quite a while, and this is a pretty new tire, so figured just be interesting to give it a shot, see how it goes. The other option was the BFG KO2, which we have on our Toyota Tacoma. That tire in this size seems to have an issue though with premature wear with heavier loads. So we decided to give this one a shot instead. The wheels are a Method 701, and they're 17-inch by 8.5-inch. And these wheels are pretty neat because they have what they call an internal bead lock, and essentially what it is an extra lip on the inside, so the tire kind of gets sandwiched in there, and when you run low air pressure on it, it helps retain the bead, and so you don't have the tire coming off the bead when you're driving off-road. So that's the tires there. On the side we have the side-stepped rock sliders. So the first purpose of these is to be a rock slider that we can use off-road, where we can have rocks hit it, trees pivot around it, and secondary, it helps protect the side from rock and debris as we're driving down the road. That's why we top plated it. This was kind of a design that Derek and I came up with, where basically have the tube structure, and then he cut out these steel plates and we kind of made them flush with the tube, so it kind of gives it a neat look, and it also allows for water to drain down from the top there. The second function of these sliders is to offer a camper tie down point. So instead of having frame mounted tie downs for the camper, we attached it into the frame here. These are welded onto the frame. Now, due to the fact that this is a high tensile strength frame, like most modern vehicles are now, we had to take extra precaution on keeping the weld temperature down. We welded to it, so we welded a plate to it, and then he MIG welded it on, allowing it to properly cool so it wouldn't potentially damage the frame with high excessive temperatures. The front and rear legs on this are gusseted in, so give it some extra strength, especially with the camper pulling up on this, or if we were driving off-road and a rock hit it. So the back bumper is a worn bumper again. It has extra cutouts for lights that we will probably add for just some backup lighting in dark areas when we're out camping or out in the forest exploring. For the back, we built these little camper tie downs that are welded to the bottom of the bumper, so it allows us to tie the camper in, so it's essentially frame mounted, and without having a bunch of low-hanging camper mounts that we're going to get caught up on. So it's pretty high clearance. We've got it tucked in pretty tight, so hopefully that will work pretty well with the camper. When we get it, we'll find out. We'll do some testing on it. And then in the bed, we have a 21-gallon fuel tank. So this one is a custom built tank. I drew up the plans for it and then found a boat shop that makes custom tanks to build it. It is a fully aluminum tank, and it basically reduces the bed length by about 3 inches. So this profile here is 3 inches, and the bottom is actually about 5 inches. So it kind of does a stair step because this upper rail here kind of sticks out into the bed. So we're able to carry an additional 21 gallons of fuel and only lose 3 inches of total bed length space. It has a locking cap cover for the fuel, so we don't have people stealing the fuel. It has a feed tube that goes down to the bottom, so we can use a pump on it. And then it has a vent with a rollover device in there, so it will keep it from leaking if we're off-roading at extreme angles. And then in the bed, we took some aluminum, so this is just L-channel aluminum, and we welded it in. So what this will allow for is when we load the camper, it'll allow a stopping point for the camper so it doesn't run into the tank. And then it also helps to guide the camper in. So as we're putting it in, it slides the camper into place, and then it will hold it in place when we're off-road. So it won't be sliding and jostling around as we're driving on rough roads. And in the back, we also added some small mounts, and so these are just to keep the back of the camper in line with the front, and should allow for a lot easier loading and unloading of the camper, as well as pretty slick because this bed is aluminum. These are aluminum, so it makes for a nice fit, being that they're welded in. Should be pretty low maintenance and easy to work with on that. So that is our full build on the truck to date. We have additional things we'll be doing to it. Mostly the rear suspension we didn't touch at all because Deaver, who makes custom leaf springs for these trucks, is not operating, thanks coronavirus. So as soon as they get back in business, we'll have some rear springs made and get some shocks installed on the rear, and that will pretty much wrap up all of our suspension, and we'll just be doing some tuning and testing here once we get it back home. So that was our project. 4 days, transformed a completely stock F250 into kind of a pretty intimidating beast, and it should be pretty good. We'll be doing some testing on it, so stay tuned on some future videos where we take this out, see what it does, and see what else we need to do before we take it out on some big trips. We have a camper that's coming for it, so we'll be showing that as soon as we pick it up and seeing how that works. Obviously doing some testing on it, and depending on how stuff works here, we'll be going on some really cool trips here this summer. So thanks for watching. If any of this is of interest, be sure to like, subscribe, and if you have any questions, be glad to answer those in the comments below. And stay tuned otherwise for upcoming stuff we're working on. Thanks for watching.